Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me. Series number 137, a new book, the Urantia Book. I've been investigating this channeled material, and in this case, a William Sadler, a doctor, a skeptic, someone who was exposing psychic frauds back in 1931 and beyond. So he wasn't anybody you would expect to be involved in channeling or entities. But he was a doctor. And one of the people nearby who knew him called him up one evening, frantic, and said that her sleeping husband would not wake up. So he went down to the house, and while he was checking the guy over, all of a sudden a voice came out from some kind of entity. And it gave him instructions on what to do and what would follow in the following weeks, months, and years. This entity said, get 70 people, reputable, and form a forum, a group, and I'm going to give you instructions on what to go compile, information that's out there, like the Gospel of St. John in the Bible, and many other documents and books and material that was out in the public domain. He said, we're not going to give you a lot of original information, but we will give you information when you run across problems or questions. So this entity from the other side didn't want to re-quote the Gospel of St. John or other books, Book of Enoch, whatever. It was going to give this group directions on what material to go compile, and then when they would have their weekly meetings to make up a list of questions, and this entity would then come up with the answers. So all of this came up to be put together as the Urantia Book. And during World War II, apparently the entities said they had to cease communication because they had to deal with the communist and World War II issues. And after World War II, apparently they reappeared and continued the discussion. The Urantia Book, U-R-A-N-T-I-A. So, as usual, I looked into it. And apparently, Part 4, Chapter 4, is a fascinating conversation. So I'm just going to read from this document. I'm going to maybe make a point up front. When they say Urantia, they're actually meaning Earth. So I may just slide in Earth there to make it less confusing. Alright, so I have this document. I went online. You can get the whole book on PDF form and peruse it yourself. Check it out. But listen to this fascinating conversation. Be curious to think what other people think. Assigned to Gabriel, I guess Gabriel, as many people know, is one of the archangels, to supervise the restatement of the life of Michael on earth, when on earth, and in the likeness of mortal flesh. So this leader in the angelic plane was going to go to earth and become a human. I, the Melchizedek, and I looked that up, that's like a righteous priest, director of the Revelatory Commission entrusted with this task, am authorized to present this narrative of certain events which immediately preceded the Creator's Son's arrival on earth to embark upon the terminal phase of his universe, bestowal experience. So apparently the Creator's Son, who is that? We would say that's Jesus, was in the universe, the cosmic universe, the creator of this universe. And I say this universe because apparently there are other universes and other creators. So this creator, and they call him Michael before he came to earth and was known as Jesus, to have an experience on earth. I'm paraphrasing here so I can make this simpler to read. To live such identical lives as he imposes upon the intelligent beings of his own creation. So this Michael, and on earth called Jesus, was going to be a human to interact with his fellow human beings that he created. Thus to bestow himself in the likeness of his various orders of created beings is a part of the price which every Creator's Son must pay for the full and supreme sovereignty of his self-made universe of things and beings. So the short story is, apparently, when you create a universe and you're a son of God, a Creator's Son of God, part of your duty in the evolution of that universe you create is to go manifest as one of your own creatures to experience it. Before the events I am about to delineate, Michael of Nebadon, so apparently our universe is called Nebadon, Nebadon, had bestowed himself 6 times after the similitude of 6 different orders of his diverse creation of intelligence beings. So apparently, 6 times prior to his coming to earth, being known as Jesus, he had manifested as one of his creatures in the universe 6 previous times. Then he prepared to descend upon earth in the likeness of mortal flesh, the lowest order of his intelligent will creatures, and as such a human of material realm, to execute the final act in the drama of an acquirement of universal sovereignty in accordance with the mandates of the divine paradise rulers of the universe of universes. Wow. In the course of these proceedings, bestowal, Michael, on earth as a human, known as Jesus, not only acquired the finite experience of one group of his created beings, but he also acquired an essential experience in paradise cooperation, which would, in and of itself, further contribute to the constituting him the sovereign, so that would be his control, of his self-made universe. At any moment throughout all past local universal time, Michael could have asserted personal sovereignty as a Creator's Son, and as a Creator's Son could have ruled his universe after the manner of his own choosing. In such an event, Emmanuel and the associated paradise sons would have taken leave of the universe. But Michael did not wish to rule Nebadon merely in his own isolated right. As a Creator's Son, he desired to ascend through actual experience in the cooperative subordination to the Paradise Trinity to that high place in the universe, status where he would become qualified to rule his universe and administer its affairs with that perfection of insight and wisdom of execution which will sometimes be characteristic of the exalted rule of the Supreme Being. He aspired not to perfection of rule as a creator's son, but to supremacy of administration as the embodiment of the universe wisdom and the divine experience of the supreme being. You getting this? Michael, on earth known as Jesus, therefore had a double purpose in the making of these 7 bestowals upon the various orders of his universe and creatures. So he had a double purpose of, I guess, manifesting as his created creatures 7 times in 7 different planets. Seems so in his universe of many universes. Told you, it was an interesting conversation looking into this channeled material and these stories. I'm not trying to advocate that this is true or false. I'm putting information in the bank, in the brain. At some point, maybe I'll catch some clues and it'll be true or it'll be false, in my opinion. First, he was completing the required experience in creature understanding, which is demanded of all creator's sons. So he had to manifest as a human so he could experience creature understanding. That would be we humans, etc. Which is demanded of all creator's sons before they assume complete sovereignty, complete control. At any time, a creator's son may rule his universe in his own right, but he can rule as the supreme representative of the Paradise Trinity only after passing through the 7 universe creature bestowals. So apparently these creator's sons have even a higher order to answer to, which would be the representatives of the Paradise Trinity. So he had to pass some tests and manifest himself as one of his own creatures and to qualify to be the supreme sovereign leader. Second, he was aspiring to the privilege of representing the maximum authority of the Paradise Trinity, which can be exercised in the direct and personal administration of a local universe. So even in the Paradise Trinity, those people that are above the Creator's Son, he wanted to move up in that political circle of angelic or even beyond that type of beings. Accordingly did Michael, on earth known as Jesus, during the experience of each of his universal bestowals, his universal 7 events where he became one of his own creatures on one of his own planets, successfully and acceptably, voluntarily subordinated himself to the various constituted wills of the diverse associations of the persons of the Paradise Trinity. So while he's away, manifested as a human, he turns over control of his own universe to the Paradise Trinity. People, entities, whatever they are. That is, on the first bestowal, he was subject to the combined will of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, and on the second bestowal, to the will of the Father and the Son, and on the third bestowal, to the will of the Father and the Spirit, and on the fourth bestowal, to the will of the Son and the Spirit, and on the fifth bestowal, to the will of the Infinite Spirit, and on the sixth bestowal, to the will of the Eternal Son, and during the 7th and final bestowal on earth, to the will of the Universal Father. So while Jesus was on earth, the Creator Son of our universe, called Nabadon, the Universal Father was in control of the universe. Michael, on earth known as Jesus, therefore combines in his personal sovereignty the divine will of the 7-fold phases of universal creators with the understanding experience of his local universe creatures. Thus has his administration become representative of the greatest possible, with the greatest possible power and authority, although divested of all arbitrary assumptions. His power is unlimited, since it is derived from the experienced association with the paradise deities. His authority is unquestioned insomuch as it was acquired through the actual experience in the likeness of universe creatures. His sovereignty is supreme, since it embodies at one and the same time the sevenfold viewpoint of paradise deity with the creature viewpoint of time and space. So he has experience and knowledge in the paradise trinity, apparently some level above all the universes with their creators, sons of each universe. What to believe? But I am checking out the channeled material, and the Urantia Book was on my list, and I found it to be fascinating information, a bizarre story. What do you think? Having determined the time of his final bestowal, visit to a planet that he created as a creature that he created, and having selected the planet whereon this extraordinary event would take place, Michael held the usual pre-stolment conference with Gabriel. So he had a conference with some other beings, Gabriel, and then presented himself before his elder brother and paradise counselor, Emmanuel. So his brother and paradise counsel was Emmanuel, and Gabriel, I think, was going to take custody of this universe while he is as a human being. All powers of universal administration, which had not previously been conferred upon Gabriel, Michael now assigned to the custody of Emmanuel, his brother. And just before Michael's, now known as Jesus on earth, departure to the earth's incarnation, Emmanuel, in accepting the custody of the universe during the time of the earth bestowal, proceeded to impart the bestowal counsel that would serve as the incarnation guide for Michael, known as Jesus on earth, when he would presently grow on the earth as a mortal of the realm. In this connection, it should be borne in mind that Michael, on earth known as Jesus, had elected to execute this bestowal in the likeness of mortal flesh, subject to the will of the Paradise Father. The Creator's Son required instructions from no one in order to effect this incarnation for the sole purpose of achieving universal sovereignty, but he had embarked upon a program of the revelation of the Supreme, which involved cooperative functioning with the diverse wills of the paradise deities. Thus his sovereignty, when finally and personally acquired, would actually be all-inclusive of the sevenfold will of the deity as it culminates in the Supreme. He had therefore 6 times previously been instructed by the personal representatives of the various paradise deities and associations thereof. And now he was instructed by the Union of Days, ambassador of the Paradise Trinity, to the local universe of Nabadon, acting on behalf of the Universal Father. You getting the picture here? This organizational structure beyond our universe called Nabadon, and the Paradise Trinity, the Paradise deities, above all the creators of the many universes. And these sons of a created universe, apparently have to manifest 7 times as part of their training and going up the ladder of leadership in the universe of universes. There were immediate advantages and tremendous compensations resultant from the willingness of this mighty creator, Son, once more voluntarily to subordinate himself to the will of the paradise deities. So he got a lot of points or credits or raise in rank for doing this. This time to that of the Universal Father. By this decision to effect such associative subordination, Michael, known as Jesus on earth, would experience in this incarnation not only the nature of mortal man, bear with me on my speaking, this tiny print here and it can be a little complex, but also the will of the Paradise Father of all. So there is a Paradise Father of all, a God above the God. A God above the gods. Apparently, each universe has a creator God, creator Son. Further of all, and further, he could enter upon the unique bestowal with the complete assurance not only that Emmanuel, his brother, would exercise the full authority of the Paradise Father in the administration of his universe during the absence on the earth's bestowal, but also with the comforting knowledge that the ancients of days, I guess some kind of ancient beings, of the super universe had decreed the safety of his realm throughout the entire bestowal period. Well, apparently they wanted to guarantee his safety on earth. Moving on. And this was the setting for the momentous occasion that Emmanuel presented to the 7 bestowal commission. So Michael's brother, Michael who was known as Jesus on earth, his brother Emmanuel presented this to the 7th bestowal commission. And from this pre-bestowal charge of Emmanuel to the universal ruler, who subsequently became Jesus of Nazarene, Christ Michael on earth, I am permitted to present the following excerpts. Wow, what a story. So the first chapter in this particular paper, the 7th bestowal commission. My creator brother, I am about to witness your 7th and final universal bestowal. Turning himself into one of his creatures, manifesting. Most faithfully and perfectly have you executed the 6 previous commissions. And I entertain no thought that you will be equally triumphant in this, your terminal sovereignty bestowal. Heretofore, you have appeared on your bestowal spheres, so they call Earth a sphere, as a fully developed being of the order of your choosing. Now you are about to appear upon Earth, the disordered and disturbed planet of your choice. Not as a fully developed mortal, but as a helpless baby. This, my comrade, will be a new and untried experience for you. It's funny how they use the word comrade here in this document. You are about to pay the full price of bestowal and to experience the complete enlightenment of the incarnation of a creator in the likeness of a creature. Wow. All right, one more on this page. Throughout each of your former bestowals, you have voluntarily chosen to subject yourself to the will of the 3 paradise deities and their divine interassociations. Of the 7 phases of the will of the Supreme, You have in your previous bestowals, visits to planet you created and becoming one of their creatures, been subject to all bestowal. I, as the personal representative of our Father, assume the unqualified jurisdiction of your universe for the time of your incarnation. So Emmanuel was taking charge of Michael, known as Jesus on earth, his universe, while Michael was gone. All right, page 2 of my printed out sheet. A very small print. Fascinating conversation. Channeled material. 1931, I think, to 1948, with a break between World War II, because the entities or entity communicating the information through some sleeping man, who there are different speculations on who that sleeping man was. And there are people who are skeptics and say this is part of some fraud. But it is channeled material. Can we call all channeled material fraud? Or can we believe any of this channeled material? I just think this particular story is kind of fascinating in its description of the creators of the universe and the hierarchy of beings even above them. All right, in entering upon earth bestowal, that means when you transfer yourself to earth as one of its creatures, you have voluntarily divested yourself of all extraplanetary support and special assistance such as might be rendered by any creature of your own creation. As a creator's son of Abaddon, as your creator's sons of Abaddon are wholly dependent upon you for safe conduct throughout their universe careers, so now must you become wholly and unreservingly dependent upon your Paradise Father for safe conduct throughout the unrevealed vicissitudes of your ensuing mortal career. And when you shall have finished this bestowal experience, your visit to earth as a human, you will know in the very truth the full meaning and rich significance of that faith trust which you so unvaryingly require of all your creatures to master as a part of their intimate relationship with you as their local universe creator and father. Throughout your earth bestowal, you need to be concerned with but one thing: the unbroken communion between you and your Paradise Father, and it will be by the perfection of such a relationship that the world of your bestowal, even all the universe of your creation, will behold a new and more understandable revelation of your Father and my Father, the universal Father of all. Your concern, therefore, has only to do with your personal life on earth. I will be fully and efficiently responsible for the security and unbroken administration of your universe from the moment of your voluntarily relinquishment of authority until you return to us as universal sovereign, so the universal leader, confirmed by Paradise and received back from my hands, not the vice-regent authority that you now surrender to me, but instead the supreme power over and jurisdiction of your universe. So those are kinds of the rules of somebody else taking helm control of the universe while he's gone. And that you may know with assurance that I am empowered to do all that I am now promising, knowing full well that I am the assurance of all Paradise for the faithful performance of my word. I announce to you that there has just been communicated to me a mandate of the Ancient of Days on Universa, which will prevent all spiritual jeopardy in Abaddon throughout the period of your voluntarily bestowal. So apparently there can't be any rebellious activity on behalf of the gods or these creatures from that realm while he's away. From the moment you surrender consciousness upon the beginning of the mortal incarnation until you return to us as supreme and unconditional sovereign of this universe, of your own creation and organization, nothing of serious import can happen in all Abaddon. So they're guaranteeing him nothing will happen bad in his universe while he's gone. In the interim of your incarnation, I hold the orders of the Ancient of Days, which unqualifyingly mandate the instantaneous and automatic extinction of any being guilty of rebellion or presuming to instigate insurrection in the universe of Abaddon while you are absent on this bestowal. Wow. My brother, in view of the authority of paradise inherent in my presence and augmented by the judicial mandate of Universa, the enhanced revelation of our Father to the intelligent beings of your universe. Your universe and all its loyal creatures will be secured during your bestowal. You may proceed upon your mission with but a single thought, the enhanced revelation that our Father to the intelligent beings of your universe. Print is so small here. I sometimes skip a line or go over it, but I think you get the gist of this story. As in each of your previous bestowals, I would remind you that I am recipient of your universe jurisdiction as brother trustee. I exercise all authority and wield all power in your name. I function as would our Paradise Father, and in accordance with your explicit request that I thus act in your stead. And such being the fact, all this delegated authority is yours again to exercise at any moment you may see fit to relinquish its return. Your bestowal is throughout wholly voluntary. As a mortal incarnate in the realm, you are without celestial endowments, but all your relinquished power may be had at any time you may choose to reinvest yourself with the universal authority. If you should choose to reinstate yourself in power and authority, remember it will be wholly for personal reasons, since I am the living and supreme pledge whose presence and promise guarantee the safe administration of your universe in accordance with your Father's will. Rebellion such has 3 times occurred in Abaddon. So apparently in our universe there have been 3 rebellions. Cannot occur during your absence from Salvington, wherever their headquarters is. I guess that's the name of it. On this bestowal. For the period of the earth bestowal, the Ancients of Days have decreed that rebellion in Abaddon shall be invested with the automatic seed of its own annihilation. So should anybody cause any trouble while this Michael, known as Jesus on earth, does anybody cause any trouble from this celestial kingdom, they would have the seed of their own annihilation. Wow. As long as you are absent on this final and extraordinary bestowal, with Gabriel's cooperation, the faithful administration of your universe, and as I commission you to undertake this ministry of divine revelation and to undergo this experience of perfected human understanding, I act in behalf of my Father and your Father and offer you the following counsel, which should guide you in the living of your earth as you become progressively self-conscious regarding the divine mission of your continued sojourn in the flesh. Wow. This is a story about why and how Jesus came to earth, so as the information is channeled. Not that I'm trying to preach this as true. I read it and absorb it like I've been reading and absorbing a lot of channeled information. All right, the bestowal limitations. So maybe there's some limitations when you reincarnate as one of the creatures of your creation, in this case, as a human on earth. In accordance with the usages and in conformity with the technique of Sonnington, in compliance with the mandates of the eternal sons of paradise, I have provided in every way for your immediate entrance upon this mortal bestowal, in harmony with the plans formulated by you and placed in my keeping by Gabriel. You will grow up on earth as a child in the realm, complete your human education, all the while subject to the will of your paradise Father. Live your life on earth as you have determined, terminate your planetary sojourn, your visit, and prepare for ascension to your Father to receive from him the supreme sovereignty of your universe. So when his sojourn, visit to earth is complete, he gains complete sovereign control of his universe. Apart from your earth mission and your universal relevation, both incidental to both, I counsel that you assume, after you are sufficiently self-conscious of your divine identity, the additional task of technically terminating, get this, terminating the Lucifer rebellion in the system of Satania. So apparently there is a system called Satania. Is that a star system? And that you do all this as the Son of Man. So Jesus, even in Edgar Casey's material and the Bible, is known as the Son of Man. And the Gabriel is suggesting that while he's here, he terminate the Lucifer rebellion in the system of Satania. Thus, as a mortal creature in the realm in weakness made powerful by the faith submission to the will of the Father, I suggest that you graciously achieve all that you have repeatedly declined arbitrarily to accomplish by power and might when you were so endowed at the time of the inception of this sinful and unjustified rebellion, Lucifer rebellion. I would regard it as a fitting climax of your mortal bestowal if you should return to us as the Son of Man, planetary Prince of Earth, as well as the Son of God, supreme sovereign of your universe. As a mortal man, the lowest type of intelligent creature in the Abaddon. Wow. Mortal man is the lowest type of intelligent creature in the Abaddon, this universe. Meet and educate the blasphemous children of light. Whoa, wait a minute here. Moving on. So apparently, Michael as Jesus will be a mortal man, the lowest type of intelligent creature in the Abaddon. And he is to meet and adjudicate some kind of legal decision-making thing, the blasphemous pretensions of the Caligestia, whoever they are, and Lucifer, and in your assumed humble estate, forever end the shameful misrepresentations of these fallen children of light, having steadfastly declined to discredit these rebels through the exercise of your creator prerogatives. Now it would be fitting that you should, in the likeness of the lowest creatures of your creation, wrest dominion from the hands of these fallen sons, fallen angels. And so, would your whole local universe in all fairness clearly and forever recognize the justice of your doing in the role of the mortal flesh those things which mercy admonishes you not to do by the power of arbitrary authority. So apparently they're expecting him to make some decisions to rid the planet Earth and his universe of these satanic Lucifer and Caligestia beings, fallen angels. Just telling you what it sounds like to me. Alright, and having thus by your bestowal, visit to earth, established the possibility of insurrections, notwithstanding the greater or lesser time lag involved in the realization of this achievement. By this act of the pending dissensions of your universe will be the substance liquidated, and with the subsequent endowment of supreme sovereignty over your universe, similar challenges to your authority can never recur in any part of your great personal creation. Wow. When you have succeeded in terminating the earth secession, as you undoubtedly will, I counsel you to accept from Gabriel the conference of the title of planetary prince of earth as the eternal recognition by your universe of your final bestowal experience, and earth by the Caligestia betrayal and the subsequent Adamic default. So the fall of man, the fall of Adam and Eve. In accordance with your request, Gabriel and all concerned will cooperate with you in the express desire to end your earth bestowal with the pronouncement of the dispensational judgment of the realm, accompanied by the termination of an age, the resurrection of the sleeping mortal survivors, and the establishment of the dispensation of the bestowment spirit of truth. So accompanied by the termination of an age. Remember, this is when Jesus was born, was the beginning of the age of Pisces. And in the 1900s, apparently, we started the age of Aquarius. And they do talk about the Jesus Christ coming back, the Antichrist. And we see all this New Age, New World Order material. I just like to try to put the stuff up here and connect the dots. Is this document true information or deception? As concerns the planet of your bestowal, the immediate generation of men living thereon at the time, to your mortal sojourn, your visit, I counsel you to function largely in the role of a teacher. That's what Jesus did. Give attention first to the liberation and inspiration of man's spiritual nature. Next, illuminate the darkened human intellect, heal the souls of men, emancipate their minds from age-old fears, and then, in accordance with your mortal wisdom, minister to the physical well-being and mental comfort of your brothers in the flesh. Live the ideal religious life for the inspiration and edification of all your universe. On the planet of your bestowal, set rebellion segregated men spiritually free. Set rebellion segregated men spiritually free. On earth, make a further contribution to the sovereignty of the Supreme, thus extending the establishment of this sovereignty throughout the broad domains of your personal creation. In this, your material bestowal in the likeness of the flesh, you are about to experience the final enlightenment of the time-space creator, the dual experience of working within the nature of man with the will of your paradise Father. In your temporal life, you will be the finite creature and the will of the infinite creator are to become as one, even as they are also united in the evolving deity of the Supreme Being. Pour out upon the planet of your bestowal the spirit of truth, and thus make all normal mortals on that isolated sphere called Earth immediately and fully accessible to the ministry of the segregated presence of our Paradise Father, the thought adjusters of the realm. Thought adjusters of the realm. In all that you may perform on the world of your bestowal, pardon my reading, think it's easy, give it a try. In all that you may perform on the world of your bestowal, bear constantly in mind that you are living a life for the instructions and edification of all your universe. You are bestowing this life of mortal incarnation upon earth. But you are to live such a life for the spiritual inspiration of every human and superhuman intelligence that has lived, now exists, or may yet live on every inhabited world, which has formed, now forms, and may yet form a part of the vast galaxy of your administrative domain. Your earth life in the likeness of mortal flesh shall not be so lived as to constitute an example for the mortals of earth in the days of your earthly visit, nor for any subsequent generation of human beings on earth or any other world. Rather shall your life in the flesh on earth be the inspiration for all lives upon all Nabadon, the whole universe, worlds throughout all generations in the ages to come. Wow. And I keep switching the word Urantia for earth. Apparently that's what they called it, Urantia. But when I read it, I had to keep playing with it in my mind. So when I'm reading it here for people watching my video, I try to make it a little clearer. All right, another paragraph here. Your great mission to be realized and experienced in the mortal incarnation is embraced by your decision to live a life wholeheartedly motivated to do the will of your Paradise Father. Thus to reveal God, your Father, in the flesh, and especially to the creatures of the flesh. At the same time, you will also interpret, with new enhancement, our Father, to the super-mortal beings of all Nabadon. So he has another task of, I guess, teaching all the creatures of Nabadon during this experience on earth. Equally, with this ministry of new revelation and augmented interpretation of the Paradise Father to the human and the superhuman type of mind, you will also so function as to make a new revelation of man to God, exhibit in your own short life in the flesh as it has never before been, seen in all Nabadon. The transcendent possibilities attainable by a God-knowing human during the short career of mortal existence, and make a new and illuminating interpretation of man and the vicissitudes of his planetary life to all the superhuman intelligence of all Nabadon for all time. You are to go down to earth in the likeness of mortal flesh, and living as a man in your day and generation, you will so function as to show your entire universe the ideal of perfected technique in the supreme engagement of the affairs of your vast creation. The achievement of God seeking man and finding him, and the phenomenon of man seeking God and finding him, and doing all of this to mutual satisfaction, and doing it during one short lifetime in the flesh. Like I said, this is available online in PDF, the Urantia Book. But I read it and throw in my 2 cents and kind of paraphrase or modify the different words so it makes sense. Sometimes you've got to think it through. Like Melchizedek, I didn't know what that meant, so I looked it up in the beginning of this video. And apparently it was a righteous priest or a righteous king. So the current Melchizedek is what they were talking about. All right, another chapter. I caution you ever to bear in mind, while in fact you are to become an ordinary human in the realm, in potential you will remain a creator's son of Paradise Father. Lest we all forget, Jesus performed miracles, raised Lazarus from the dead, prophesied things that were going to happen ahead of time, which they did. So apparently he knew more than the average human. Throughout this incarnation, although you will live and act as the Son of Man, the creative attributes of your personal divinity will follow you from Salvington to earth. It will ever be within your power of will to terminate the incarnation at any moment subsequent to the arrival of your thought adjuster. Prior to the arrival and reception of the adjuster, I will vouch for your personality integrity, but subsequently to the arrival of the adjuster, your adjuster, and concomitant with your progressive recognition of the nature and import of your bestowal mission, you should refrain from the formulation of any superhuman will to attainment, achievement, or power in view of the fact that your creator prerogatives will remain associated with your mortal personality because of the inseparability of these attributes from your personal presence. But no superhuman repercussions will attend your earthly career, apart from the will of the Paradise Father, unless you should, by an act of conscience and deliberate will, make an undivided decision that would terminate in whole personality choice. I hope if you're watching this video, you're getting the gist of this story, the entities behind the scenes, behind Jesus, so as this channeled information would tell us, the Urantia Book. I've got a lot more to go in my investigation. So of course this will be part 1, this video. And as I move on investigating channeled material, I will get more material on the Urantia Book and make a part 2, maybe a part 3. But I'll try to get to a point where I can decide what I think. Further counsel and advice. So before he leaves, there's a little bit more information required. And now, my brother, in taking leave of you, as you prepare to depart for earth, and after consulting you regarding the general conduct of your bestowal, visit to earth, allow me to present certain advices that have been arrived at the consultation with Gabriel, and which concern minor phases of your mortal life. We further suggest: 1. That in the pursuit of the ideal of your mortal life, you also give some attention to the realization and exemplification of some things practical and immediate helpful to your fellow man. So give some attention to helping your fellow man. Number 2, as concerns family relationships, give precedence to the accepted customs of family life as you find them established in the days and generations of your bestowal, your visit. Live your family and community life in accordance with the practices of the people among whom you have elected to appear. Number 3, in your relations to the social order, we advise you to confine your efforts largely to spiritual regeneration and intellectual emancipation. Avoid all extra entanglements with the economic structure and the political commitments of your day. More especially, devote yourself to living the ideal religious life on earth. Number 4, under no circumstances, and not even in the latest detail, should you interfere with the normal and orderly progressive evolution of the Earth races. Sounds like Star Trek, Captain Kirk. You can't alter peoples on the different planets you visit. But this prohibition must not be interpreted as limiting your efforts to leave behind you on earth an enduring and improved system of positive religious ethics. As a dispensational son, you are granted certain privileges pertaining to the advancement of the spiritual and religious status of the world peoples. Number 5, as you may see fit, you are to identify yourself with existing religions and spiritual movements as they may be found on earth, but in every possible manner seek to avoid the formal establishment of an organized cult, a crystallized religion, or a segregated ethical grouping of mortal beings. Your life and teachings are to become the common heritage of all religions and all peoples. Well, that smacks of New Age and New World Order. Just saying, I'm using my God-given brain to think it out. To the end that you may not unnecessarily contribute to the creation of subsequent stereotype systems of earth, religious beliefs, or other types of non-progressive religious loyalties. Non-progressive? We advise you still further, leave no writing behind you on the planet. Refrain from all writing upon permanent materials. Enjoin your associates to make no images or other likenesses of yourself in the flesh. See that nothing potentially adulterizes, don't make any idols, is left on the planet at the time of your departure. Number 7, while you live the normal and average social life on the planet, being a normal individual of the male sex, you will probably not enter the marriage relation, which relation would be wholly honorable and consistent with your bestowal. But I must remind you that one of the incarnation mandates of Sorrington forbids the leaving of human offspring behind on any planet of a bestowal son of paradise origin. So they got rules, you can't leave any offspring. Number 8. In all other details of your oncoming bestowal, we would commit you to the leading of the indwelling adjuster. The teaching of the ever-present divine spirit of human guidance, and the reasoned judgment of your expanding human mind of hereditary endowment. Such an association of creature and creator attributes will enable you to live for us the perfect life of man on the planetary spheres, not necessarily perfect as regarded by any one man, or in any one generation, or any one world, much less on earth, but wholly and supremely replete as evaluated on the more highly perfected and perfecting worlds of your far-flung universe. So your standards are not to be judged by your earth visit by earthlings, etc., but by your far-flung universe and all the beings. You are to set an example. So it says here, so it seems. All right. And now may your Father and my Father, who has ever sustained us in all past performances, guide and sustain you and be with you from the moment you leave us and achieve the surrender of your consciousness of personality throughout your gradual return to recognition of your divine identity incarnate in human form. And then on through the whole of your bestowal experience, visit to earth experience, on earth and until your deliverance from the flesh and your ascension to our Father's right hand of sovereignty, when I shall again see you on Salvington, we shall welcome your return to us as the supreme and unconditional sovereign leader of this universe of your own making, serving and completed understanding. In your stead, I now reign. I assume jurisdiction of all Nabadon, and acting sovereign during the interim of your seventh and mortal bestowal on earth. And to you, Gabriel, I commit the safekeeping of the Son of Man about to be until he shall presently and in power and in glory be returned to me as the Son of Man and the Son of God. And Gabriel, I am your sovereign until Michael thus returns. So Emmanuel is taking charge of the universe. And Gabriel will now be under his control. And Michael, now known as Jesus, will do the earthly visit. Then immediately, in the presence of all Salvington assembled, Michael removed himself from our midst, and we saw him no more in the accustomed place until his return as the supreme and personal ruler of the universe, subsequent to the completion of his bestowal career on earth. And to be fair and balanced, I did go look on the internet for some other material, and I ran across a couple of opinions. Negative, positive, you decide. We all have to do research and try to figure out what's going on with the craziness going on in the world right now. Seemingly preparations for a new age and a new world order. FEMA camps, microwave transmitters, cell phones, Gwen towers, GMO foods, fluoride in the water, fake shootings, bombings, 9/11, World War I, World War II, 2,000 years of dispersed Jewish people all over the world with a seething desire to gain back the Jerusalem and the Holy Land for their kingdom. And there's information here about that, as I'm going to read in the future. have another document that involves the Jewish people in this conversation. Remember, Jesus was born of the Jewish race. There were several different sects of the religion, different cults. He was of the Essenes, and then, of course, the Pharisees and the other Jewish people rejected him as a Messiah, crucified him. He rose from the dead. And I've made videos on St. Mark, St. Luke, St. Matthew, St. John. So go watch those that I read from the Bible. And listen to this video. Listen to other channel material. Look at other people's videos. But do something. Apathy is not the answer. Alright, so this one guy said, having stumbled across the long and arcane Urantia Book at college, I was interested to read Gardner's skeptical take on the history of this rather obscure document. So there was this Mr. Gardner who was a skeptic and had his own opinion, which I suspect that's pretty normal. People are going to agree or disagree. But apparently a lot of people agree. There's a huge following all over the world of this material. He does a good job in summarizing the somewhat bizarre Urantian cosmology and reveals the mindset of its all-human authors who come out of the Seventh-day Adventist religion. Dr. Sadler was an intelligent, well-read man, but his ideas on topics like health, especially sex and eugenics, politics and science seem eccentric to modern readers. And anybody, even people like me, who still believe in Christianity, and I believe in the other religions, they all have similar commandments. In community college, when I was younger, I took a comparative religion course by an Iranian teacher. And generally speaking, all the different religions have don't kill, don't steal, stuff like that. Even the shamans and all those people had morals and ethics. But there were always, even with the shamans and people with popes and people leadership of religions, there were always evil people who got into power. And it just seems now, 2017, according to some videos I was watching this morning, even with the complete Trump reversal on the things he said he was going to do and what he's doing, the Rents program and other Jeff Rents and other talk show hosts on alternate sites and news in the media, even of Trump sending the biggest mother bomb of all to Afghanistan this year, 59 missiles towards Syria. It seems we've got the same situation as when we got Obama, because it seems like the evil forces are in control of our world, and particularly the Zionist Illuminati forces bent on the New Age and the New World Order. But what's it got to do with this? Is this part of the deception, or is this part of the solution? All right, so this guy's making talk about Dr. Sadler. Politics and science seem eccentric to modern readers. Gardner makes a compelling case for your Earth being a continuation of a religious duplicity that caused Dr. Sadler to lose faith in Ellen White, the Adventist prophet. Continuing on here. The origin of a religion like Urantia is a familiar story to anyone who has studied new religious movements and speaks volumes about our need to believe. The 1930s era scientific eras and rampant plagiarism that undermine the Urantia Book's alleged supernatural origin support Gardner's conclusion. In a postscript to the second edition published 2008, Gardner reviews the chaos of Urantia movement in recent years as different factions have formed around new channeled messages. There you go. That's why I'm studying this channeled information. The different factions are forming around new channeled messages. From whom? Here's another comment. Plagiarism? I don't think so. a guy named by the William. He says many postings point out the Urantia Book has been plagiarized. It has, but as the Urantia Book admits, not with citations. A citation would be over-complimentary. The work is many levels above original source authors, or those that have pieces of the truth during 1955 and earlier, at the time of the writing of the Urantia Book. So the channeled entities clearly said that we're not going to tell you everything. We're going to suggest where you get your source material, and then have a group of people go over it, and if you have any questions, we'll answer those questions at that time. And they did this for many years. So the entities on the other side apparently were making the authors go look up material that was already in the public domain. And that's in the channeled material. It says here, we may resort to pure revelation only when the concept of presentation has had no adequate previous expression by the human mind. So says the entity channeling through the sleeping man. Sometimes when you read people's writing, there's mistakes here. Because it says they, perhaps thousands. So there are perhaps thousands of human source authors. There are no U-book readers that doubt this. But if you would take the time to view the concepts that believe to be plagiarized, you might come away believing, as I do, that it is akin to turning a Ford Model T into a modern Cadillac Eldorado. They both roll, use engines to propel, but one is an advanced art form while the other remains mere transportation. The Urantia Book is a book written with beautiful, precise, advanced concepts, written concisely. Precise, concisely. Got a duplication there. So I just thought I'd go over some of the comments. That was one page. I have another page. But I want to read from another document. Paper 121. The first one I read was 120. And there is some very interesting material in there. Well, this should be an interesting conversation. On the paper 121, the title says the Jewish people. Remember, Jesus was born into the Jewish race, which had many different sects, cults of religious orders. Just like there are many Christian orders, different kinds of churches, Protestant, Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, etc. The Jews were a part of the older Semitic race, which also included the Babylonians, the Phoenicians, and the most recent enemies of Rome, the Carthaginians. During the forepart of the 1st century after Christ, the Jews were the most influential group of the Semitic peoples. They happened to occupy a particular strategic geographic position in the world as it was at that time ruled and organized for trade. So Palestine is in a very unique place even today, and now through some deception, the Balfour Agreement, etc., World War I, World War II, and 9/11, it's called Israel, and it is growing into a greater Israel, which it looks like it'll encompass parts of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Syria, etc. So why did they do 9/11 and World War I and World War II? Seems obvious. Back to the document. Many of the great highways joining the nations of antiquity passed through Palestine. So even these entities channeling from the other side called it Palestine. Now the Palestinians have very little land left. Palestine, which thus became the meeting place, the crossroads of three continents. The travel, trade, and armies of Babylon, Assyria, Egypt, Syria, Greece, Parthia, and Rome successfully swept over Palestine. So a lot of people back then, 2,000 years ago, were vying for control of the area. From time immemorial, many caravan routes from the Orient passed through some part of this region to a few good seaports on the eastern end of the Mediterranean, whence ships carried their cargoes to all maritime Occident. That area is called the Occident, between the Asian countries, China, etc., Japan, all of that, and then the West, Europe, etc., Turkey, Greece. And more than half of this caravan traffic passed through or near the little town of Nazareth of Galilee. So this being, Michael, as Jesus, did he come to that area for a reason? Was he the Messiah? Prophesied Jesus? All right, moving on. Although Palestine was the home of Jewish religious culture and the birthplace of Christianity, the Jews were abroad in the world. So 2,000 years ago, the Jews were already dispersed all around the world, involved in finance and trade, etc. So I think that happened about 500 years earlier. So they have been in a program called diaspora, dispersed all over the world, for 2,500 years. And now they have a program called Aliyah, where the Jews are returning home. For the last 100, 150 years, maybe 200 years, it has been this push and pull and instigation, wars, economic distress, accusations of anti-Semitism, to encourage for Jews from all over the world to move back home. Maybe to fulfill some kind of prophecy? All right, so they were all over the world, dwelling in many nations, trading in every province of the Roman and Parthian states. Greece provided a language and a culture. Rome built the roads, unified an empire, but the dispersion of the Jews, with their more than 200 synagogues and well-organized religious communities, scattered hither and yon throughout the Roman world, provided the cultural centers in which the new gospel of the kingdom of heaven found initial reception, from which it subsequently spread to the uttermost parts of the world. Each Jewish synagogue tolerated a fringe of Gentile believers, non-Jews, devout or God-fearing men, and it was among the fringe of proselytes, people who converted to that religion, that Paul made the bulk of his early converts to Christianity. Even the temple at Jerusalem possessed an ornate court of Gentiles. There was very close connection between the culture, commerce, and worship of Jerusalem and Antioch. In Antioch, Paul's disciples were first called Christians. Now, the next paragraph. The centralization of the Jewish temple worship at Jerusalem constituted alike the secret of their survival, of their monotheism, and the promise of the nurture and sending forth to the world of a new and enlarged concept of that one God of all nations, the Father of all mortals. The temple service at Jerusalem represented the survival of a religious culture, concept in the face of a downfall of succession of Gentile national overlords and racial persecutors. The Jewish people at this time, although under Roman control, enjoyed a considerable degree of self-government, and remembering the then only recent heroic exploits of deliverance executed by the Judas Maccabee and his immediate successors, were vibrant with the expectation, get this, were vibrant with the expectation of the immediate appearance of a still greater deliverer, the long-expected Messiah. So, wow, was this God creator of a universe the long-awaited Messiah? What do you think about this channeled information? The secret of the survival of Palestine, the kingdom of the Jews, as a semi-independent state, was wrapped up in foreign policy of the Roman government, which desired to maintain control of the Palestinian highway of travel between Syria and Egypt, as well as the western terminals of the caravan routes between the Orient and the Occident. Rome did not wish any power to arise in the Levant. The Levant is the area between the Oriental and the Western area called the Levant, Occidental. They did not want any power to arise in the Levant, which might curb her future expansion into those regions. So Rome was in an expansive mode right back then. The policy of the intrigue, which had for its object the pitting of the Seleucid Syrian and Ptolemaic Egypt against each other, necessitating fostering Palestine as a separate and independent state. Roman policy, the degeneration of Egypt, and the progressive weakening of the Seleucids before the rising power of Parthia, explain why it was that for several generations, a small and unpowerful group of Jews were able to maintain its ascendant against both the Seleucians to the north, so that would be around the Baltic, and the Ptolemaics to the south, that would be the Asians. This fortuitous liberty and independence of the political rule of surrounding and more powerful peoples, the Jews attributed to the fact that they were the chosen people, to the direct imposition of Yahweh. Yahweh is, I guess, what they call God. Such an attitude of racial superiority made it all the harder for them to endure Roman control when it finally fell upon their land. But even in that sad hour, the Jews refused to learn that their world mission was spiritual, not political. The Jews were unusually apprehensive and suspicious during the times of Jesus, because they were then ruled by an outsider, Herod the Idumean. So their king was an outsider who had seized the overlordship of Judea by cleverly ingratiating himself with the Roman rulers. Though Herod professed loyalty to the Hebrews' ceremonial observances, he proceeded to build temples for many strange gods. The friendly relations of Herod with the Roman rulers made the world safe for Jewish travel, and thus opened the way for increased Jewish penetration, even of distant portions of the Roman Empire, and of foreign treaty nations with the new gospel of the kingdom of heaven. Herod's reign also contributed much towards the further blending of Hebrew and Hellenistic philosophies of Troy, Greece. Herod built the harbor of Caesarea, which further aided in making Palestine the crossroads of the civilized world. He died in 4 BC, and his son Herod Antipas governed Galilee and Perea during Jesus' youth and ministry to 39 AD, 39 years after Jesus' birth. Antipas, like his father, was a great builder. He rebuilt many of the cities of Galilee, including the important trade center of Cepheus. There's some interesting history here. The Galileans were not regarded with full favor by the Jerusalem religious leaders and rabbinic teachers. Galilee was more Gentile than Jewish when Jesus was born. Well, that's interesting. All right, moving on. A new section called Among the Gentiles. And the Gentiles, of course, are the non-Jews. Although the social and economic condition of the Roman state was not of the highest order, the widespread domestic peace and prosperity was perfect for the bestowal of Michael to come to earth as Jesus. Everything was in good harmony and everything was seemingly running very well. In the first century after Christ, the society of the Mediterranean world consisted of 5 well-defined strata. The aristocrats, the upper classes with money and official power, the privileged and ruling classes. Number 2, the business groups, the merchant princes and the bankers, the traders, the big importers, exporters, the international merchants. Well, that's interesting history. 2,000 years later, here we are. The small middle class. Although this group was indeed small, it was very influential and provided the moral backbone of the early Christian church, which encouraged these groups to continue in their various crafts and trades. Among the Jews, many of the Pharisees belonged to this class of tradesmen, the small middle class. The free people, the proletariat, this group had little or no social standing, so this would be free citizens. Though proud of their freedom, they were placed at great disadvantage because they were forced to compete with slave labor. The upper classes regarded them disdainfully, allowing that they were useless except for breeding purposes. Well, this sounds familiar. Part of this Hunger Games movie New Age reality they want to bring us. Reducing the population to a manageable level as per the Georgia USA Guidestones. And so much more. Their obsession with depopulating the planet since the 1960s and 1970s. And all the activity moving forward with this New Age, New World Order sense. And back then they thought that the free people were nothing better, no use than breeding purposes. The slaves, half the population of the Roman state were slaves. Many were superior individuals and quickly made their way up among the free people, even among the tradesmen. The majority were either mediocre or were very inferior. And slavery, even the superior peoples, was a feature of Roman military conquest. The power of the master over his slave was unqualified. The early Christian church was largely composed of the lower classes and the slaves. The early Christian church was created by the lower classes and the slaves. Superior slaves often received wages and by saving their earnings were able to purchase their freedom. Many such emancipated slaves rose into high positions in state, church, and the business world, and it was just such possibilities that made the early Christian church so tolerant to this modified form of slavery. All right, another paragraph here. There was no widespread social problem in the Roman Empire in the first century after Christ. The major portion of the populace regarded themselves as belonging to that group into which they chanced to be born. There was always the open door which talented and able individuals could ascend from the lower to the highest strata of Roman society. But the people were generally content with their social rank. They were not class conscious, neither did they look upon their class distinction as being unjust or wrong. Christianity was in no sense an economic movement having for its purpose the amelioration to alleviate the miseries of the depressed classes. Although women enjoyed more freedom throughout the Roman Empire than her restricted position in Palestine, the family devotion and the natural affection of the Jews far transcended that of the Gentile world. All right, moving on, a new section called Among the Gentiles. And the Gentiles, of course, are the non-Jews. Although the social and economic condition of the Roman state was not of the highest order, the widespread domestic peace and prosperity was perfect for the bestowal of Michael to come to earth as Jesus. Everything was in good harmony and everything was seemingly running very well. In the 1st century after Christ, the society of the Mediterranean world consisted of 5 well-defined strata. The aristocrats, the upper classes with money and official power, the privileged and ruling classes. Number 2, the business groups, the merchant princes and the bankers, the traders, the big importers, exporters, the international merchants. Well, that's interesting history. 2,000 years later, here we are. The small middle class. Although this group was indeed small, it was very influential and provided the moral backbone of the early Christian church, which encouraged these groups to continue in their various crafts and trades. Among the Jews, many of the Pharisees belonged to this class of tradesmen, the small middle class. The free people, the proletariat, this group had little or no social standing, so this would be free citizens. Though proud of their freedom, they were placed at great disadvantage because they were forced to compete with slave labor. The upper classes regarded them disdainfully, allowing that they were useless except for breeding purposes. Well, this sounds familiar. Part of this Hunger Games movie New Age reality they want to bring us. Reducing the population to a manageable level as per the Georgia USA Guidestones. And so much more. Their obsession with depopulating the planet since the 1960s and 1970s. And all the activity moving forward with this New Age, New World Order sense. And back then they thought that the free people were nothing better, no use than breeding purposes. The slaves, half the population of the Roman state were slaves. Many were superior individuals and quickly made their way up among the free people, even among the tradesmen. The majority were either mediocre or were very inferior. And slavery, even the superior peoples, was a feature of Roman military conquest. The power of the master over his slave was unqualified. The early Christian church was largely composed of the lower classes and the slaves. The early Christian church was created by the lower classes and the slaves. Superior slaves often received wages and by saving their earnings were able to purchase their freedom. Many such emancipated slaves rose into high positions in state, church, and the business world, and it was just such possibilities that made the early Christian church so tolerant to this modified form of slavery. All right, another paragraph here. There was no widespread social problem in the Roman Empire in the first century after Christ. The major portion of the populace regarded themselves as belonging to that group into which they chanced to be born. There was always the open door which talented and able individuals could ascend from the lower to the highest strata of Roman society. But the people were generally content with their social rank. They were not class conscious, neither did they look upon their class distinction as being unjust or wrong. Christianity was in no sense an economic movement having for its purpose the amelioration to alleviate the miseries of the depressed classes. Although women enjoyed more freedom throughout the Roman Empire than her restricted position in Palestine, the family devotion and the natural affection of the Jews far transcended that of the Gentile world. All right, I'm skipping over some information in paper 121 of part 4 of the Urantia Book to a topic that seems applicable to today. So let's see what happened 2,000 years ago. About the time of Christ, a strange reversion of feeling toward the Jews occurred in Alexandria, Greece, and from this former Jewish stronghold there went forth a violent wave of persecution 2,000 years ago, extending even to Rome, from which many thousands were banished. So they were banishing the Jews from Rome 2,000 years ago. But such a campaign of misrepresentation was short-lived. Very soon the imperial government fully restored the curtailed liberties of the Jews throughout the empire. So if there is something called anti-Semitism, it didn't start yesterday. Throughout the whole wide world, no matter where the Jews found themselves, dispersed by commerce or by oppression, all with one accord kept their hearts centered on the Holy Temple at Jerusalem. Jewish theology did survive as it was interpreted and practiced at Jerusalem, notwithstanding that it was several times saved from oblivion by the timely intervention of certain Babylonian teachers. And hence you have all those different Jewish books, which I'm still studying. We'll be going back to the Encyclopedia Judaica, the Kabbalah, mysticism, communism, Zionism, New World Order, New Age, and trying to see what that has to do with Antarctica, reptilians, gray aliens, ascension, pole shift, Nibiru, the Anunnaki, etc. I think everything is connected. And I'm finding some connections. Even in this Urantia book, I was surprised to find this conversation I'm having right now. As many as 2.5 million of these dispersed Jews used to come to Jerusalem for the celebration of their national religious festivals 2,000 years ago. 2.5 million people would travel every year for the festivals from all over the world where they were dispersed. Can you imagine? And no matter what the theological or philosophical differences of the Eastern Babylonian and Western Hellenic, like over there from Greece and the Hellenic area, the mythology, Jews, they were all agreed on Jerusalem as the center of their worship and in ever looking forward to the coming of the Messiah. And they're looking forward to the coming of the Messiah now. And this is why we had World War I, World War II, and much more chaos and anarchy in the world. 9/11 and all those nations over there overthrown. And archaeological digs everywhere. Preparations to rebuild King Solomon's temple. And they, apparently according to this document, when this Michael, if it's true what's in this document, who came as Jesus and was the creator of the universe, they rejected him back then and crucified him. That's interesting. And apparently there was a lot of turmoil and chaos and banning of these people even from Rome 2,000 years ago. So anybody who looks into this stuff, discusses the truth, might be called an anti-Semite, you think? Or attacked by the Anti-Defamation League? Or even assassins and be murdered? This is no small thing, I keep saying. This new age and this new world order. Beguilement, rainbow agenda, new age, TV programming, movies, school teachings, controlling the economics, the banks, the hospitals. Okay, Jews and Gentiles. The conversation continues. By the time of Jesus, the Jews had arrived at a settled concept of their origin, history, and destiny. They had built up a rigid wall of separation between themselves and the Gentile world. 2,000 years ago, they built up a wall. They didn't want to integrate or be part of the Gentile, the non-Jewish world. They looked upon all Gentile ways with utter contempt. They worshipped the letter of the law and indulged a form of self-righteousness based upon the false pride of descent, hereditary descent. They had formed preconceived notions regarding the promised Messiah, and most of these explanations envisioned a Messiah who would come as part of their national and racial history. So the Messiah that did come, if this document is true, this creator of the universe, Michael, was born into the Jewish race. To the Hebrews of those days, Jewish theology was irrevocably settled, forever fixed. The teachings and practices of Jesus regarding tolerance and kindness ran counter to the long-standing attitude of the Jews towards other peoples whom they considered heathen. And according to my research, this thinking has not gone away. For generations, the Jews had nourished an attitude towards the outside world that made it impossible for them to accept the Master's teachings about the spiritual brotherhood of man. And a lot of Jews, people well known all over the world, have been telling us to be wary of these Jews who will not assimilate with the rest of us. You know, I don't understand some of it, but I'm getting closer. It's not all Jews. We've had rabbis and other people, famous people. Henry Makow. Go look up henrymakow.com, M-A-K-O-W. Amazing website. He wrote the book Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. So even in this material, we find out there was Luciferianism and Satanism and some kind of rebellion of these angelic beings. So these people who do not want to integrate with the rest of us, are they worshiping or in cahoots with these evil angelic beings mentioned in the beginning of this video that were Michael, coming as Jesus, was advised to eliminate these entities from the universe? They were unwilling to share Yiwa, so that some Jews back then were unwilling to share their God on equal terms with the Gentiles, and were likewise unwilling to accept the Son of God, one who taught such new and strange doctrines. So that was 121-7-2. If you go look up the Urantia PDF format website with the Urantia book on it. Go to part 4, paper 120 and paper 121 to see exactly what I'm reading from. Do not believe me. The scribes, the Pharisees, these would be the leaders of many Jews, the people who took control or controlled the King Solomon's temple, their religious temple. And the priesthood held the Jews in a terrible bondage. So their own leaders of the Jews are holding the people in general in bondage. And many Jews who heard Jesus, a Jew, speak, believed him and followed him, and they were at odds with their own leaders. Terrible bondage of ritualism and legalism, legalese, a bondage far more real than that of the Roman political rule. So the Jewish leaders, the Pharisees and the priests and the scribes, controlled the Jewish people more than even the Romans did. The Jews of Jesus' time were not only held in subjugation to the law, but were equally bound by the slavish demands of the traditions, which involved and invaded every domain of the personal and social life. Isn't that something? You know, you talk about the truth. Who controls the banks? Who controls the porn industry? Who controls Hollywood, the movie theaters? Who controls our politicians? And you come out with these truths going on 2,000 years ago. Even if this channeled material is false, the story here appears to be true from my research into many other books and peoples and websites and material. This is a common denominator, even in the Encyclopedia Judaic itself, on the many hours of videos I've already made on anti-Semitism, on Zionism, on communism, on Jewish history in the world, in the Encyclopedia Judaica. What do I have? 10, 22-hour videos? 25, 35 hours of material? You can go watch the videos. These minute regulations of conduct pursued and dominated every loyal Jew, and it is not strange that they promptly rejected one of their number who presumed to ignore their sacred traditions. So Jesus was throwing their sacred traditions into the wind. He even overturned the money changers' tables, even accused them of being a killer of their prophets, and are of their father Satan. That's in the Bible. And in here, this being, the creator of the universe, coming to earth as a human, was advised by Gabriel to get rid of, for once and for all, the Luciferians and the Satanists. Strangest thing you find in this stuff. To ignore their sacred traditions and who dared to flaunt their long-honored regulations of social conduct. They could hardly regard with favor the teachings of one who did not hesitate to clash with dogmas which they regarded as having been ordained by Father Abraham himself. Something funny about these channeled material. Esther Hicks is channeling Abraham. Interesting. Jane Roberts was channeling Seth. The Ra material channeling Ra. Cryon. All these names of these beings being channeled. Nancy Glasson, I made a video on, she's in one of my videos. Go look up all the entities she's channeling. Who are these people channeling? I just found this information, looking up the different popular channeled information, different religious followings and cults. And this is the story I'm reading that I'm sharing in this video. Moses had given them the law, and they would not compromise. By the time of the 1st century after Christ, the spoken interpretation of the law by the recognized teachers, the scribes, had become a higher authority than the written law itself. So the elites of the Jews were controlling all the other Jews intensely. And all this made it easier for certain religious leaders of the Jews to array the people against the acceptance of a new gospel. So they were rejecting Jesus' gospel And in this Urantia material, what I just read in this video, apparently the creator of the universe, Michael, went by the name of Jesus on earth when he was born as a human, as a baby. What is the truth? But it is an interesting conversation. These circumstances rendered it impossible for the Jews to fulfill their divine destiny as messengers of the new gospel of religious freedom and spiritual liberty. They could not break the fetters of tradition. Jeremiah had told of the law to be written in men's hearts. Ezekiel had spoken of a new spirit to live in a man's soul. And the psalmist had prayed that God would create a clean heart within and renew the right spirit. But when the Jewish religion of good works and slavery to law fell victim to the stagnation of traditionalistic inertia, the motion of religious evolution passed westward to the European peoples. So the rigid adherence the leaders of the Jews forced upon the Jews and were uncompromising with the rest of the world, I guess in a way helped promote the Christian religion. They were non-compromising. And so different people were called upon to carry the advancing theology to the world, a system of teaching embodying the philosophy of the Greeks, the laws of the Romans, and the morality of the Hebrews, and the gospel of personal sanctity and spiritual liberty formulated by Paul based on the teachings of Jesus. By the way, I'm investigating channeling. I notice some people say they don't like my conversations when they gear towards the religious. But this is channeled material. I'm not having a religious conversation. This is what this entity was channeling back in 1931 to 1948 or something, 1955. Paul's cult of Christianity exhibited its morality as a Jewish birthmark. The Jews viewed history as the providence of God, Yiwa at work. The Greeks brought to the new teaching clearer concepts of an eternal life. Paul's doctrines were influenced by theology and philosophy, not only by Jesus' teachings, but also by Plato and Philo. In ethics, he was inspired not only by Christ, but also by the Stoics. The gospel of Jesus, as was embodied in Paul's cult in Antioch, Christianity, became blended with the following teachings. The philosophical reasoning of the Greek converts to Judaism, including some of the concepts of eternal life. The appealing teachings of the prevailing mystery cults. Well, my phone rang. Isn't this an interesting conversation? A little deja vu here? Look what's going on in the world today. Why did they have 911? Why are they planning this new age and new world order? What's this all got to do with the Middle East? Apparently everything. And they control most of the leaders all over the world. And they seem to be into satanic cults, Luciferic cults. And this entity back in 1931 to 1955 being channeled, or entities, were saying that these Luciferian and satanic entities, rebellious characters from the higher dimensions, needed to be corrected, eliminated, whatever. Especially the mythic doctrines of redemption, atonement, and salvation by the sacrifice made by some god. And there is rampant satanic rituals going on, Illuminati, Luciferic, witchcraft, and so much more, child pedophilia, spirit cooking. I've been going over that. We'll go over it some more. And I looked up some of it today, and it's clearly verifiable. Look up satanic child abduction and sexual orgies with children. You're not going to like what you find. So I'm just saying, what is the truth in our reality? And listening to this information, knowing what I know, I was a little bit taken back, going, oh my God. The sturdy morality of the established Jewish religion. So Christianity became a blend of those things. All right, moving on to 121.7-12. The Mediterranean Roman Empire, the Parthian Kingdom, and the adjacent peoples of Jesus' time all held crude and primitive ideas regarding the geography of the world, astronomy, health, and disease, and naturally they were amazed by the new and startling pronouncements of the carpenter of Nazareth, Jesus. The ideas of spirit possession, remember Jesus was casting unclean spirits out of people, and those people who were afflicted with some kind of disease or mental behavior immediately became well. So those people didn't think in those concepts prior to Jesus. Good and bad applied not merely to human beings. So I guess you could be, possession could be good or bad. But every rock and tree was viewed by many as being spirit possessed. Well, with this New Age material, they talk a lot about that. This was an enchanting age, and everybody believed in miracles as commonplace occurrences. All right, I'm going to read just a little more and end this video. Previous written records. As far as possible, consistent with our mandate, we have endeavored to utilize and to some extent coordinate the existing records having to do with the life of Jesus on earth. Although we have enjoyed access to the lost record of the Apostle Andrew and have benefited from the collaboration of a vast host of celestial beings who were on earth during the times of Michael's bestowment as Jesus on earth, notably his now personalized adjuster. It has been our purpose also to make use of the so-called Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So I think I'll stop on this point in the document, and I do make notes where I started reading from and where I ended. So if I want to go back and read the rest of this, I can, or I'll probably look up some other material. It's the documentations are a couple thousands of pages of material that were William Sadler, the doctor, who got involved when he was called to somebody's house by a wife who said her husband would not wake up. And when the doctor visited the house, entities started speaking through that man. But do some of your own research. I hope this video has been a little enlightening and fascinating even. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle Reporting.